Hello, my name is Emily Rose, and I teach tarot readers and the mystically minded to read Lenormand like they're talking to a friend. And today we are here to answer the question, how is Lenormand different from tarot? This video is for you if you are a tarot reader who is wanting to understand Lenormand a little bit more or vice versa. And it's also for you if you are brand spanking new to divination and you kind of want to learn what these two systems are all about. What's tarot about? What's Lenormand about? And you want to investigate which one you kind of want to dig into and learn first. We're also going to talk about when it is best to use tarot and when it is best to use Lenormand. So without further ado, let's dig into the three main differences between Lenormand and tarot. Let's talk about the first main difference between Lenormand and tarot, and that is the tone. Tarot is very thematic and story driven, while Lenormand is pretty punchy and to the point. So, what do I mean by that? With tarot, you can spend a lot of time with just one singular card, and you can really dig in and get a lot out of just one card. So, for example, with the High Priestess card that's here, we could talk about a lot of different elements that are on this card. We could talk about her veil and how that can represent, accessing the unconscious. We could talk about the pomegranates in the background. We could talk about how she's sitting between black and white pillars and how maybe her answers aren't necessarily going to be black and white. We could talk about the moon, right? There's so many things that we can dig into on the card because there's a lot of different symbols. And with symbols, we can kind of attribute our own personal associations with those symbols and how they show up in our lives. So with tarot, you get a ton out of just one card. There's so much you can dig into. And usually this makes for a kind of counselory kind of tone. It usually gives you a pretty well-rounded answer. It gives you kind of a more holistic kind of feeling to it because there is just so much in one card. As you can imagine, Lenormand is pretty different. Instead of spending time with just one card, we are combining cards to create meaning. Each Lenormand card tends to have a single image on it. This is a snake card, for example. And instead of digging into just one card at a time, each Lenormand card represents a somewhat finite range of possible interpretations. So when you are reading Lenormand, the complexity does not come from just reading one card at a time. You're almost always reading at least two cards at a time, combining them, if not more. That's why you'll often see 3, 5, 7 cards and up to all 36 cards out on the table with Lenormand because you are actually creating a sentence with them. And what this means is that you're in for a pretty punchy and to the point reading when it comes to Lenormand. So, for example, say you ask about what your love life is going to look like over the next 3 months, and maybe you pull 5 Lenormand cards to see what that looks like. You might literally get a sentence that says something like, you may go on a few dates, but they're not going to work out, but you'll have a couple fun flings out of it. Okay, so you might get a sentence that says something like that. I kind of attribute the tone to a sassy best friend, someone who's going to tell you like it is with no BS. You're going to get it straight to the point with no chaser. The second main difference between Lenormand and tarot is the structure of the decks. So in tarot, you can classify each card by major or minor arcana, suits, or as part of the tarot court, while in Lenormand, each card is positive negative, or neutral. It's that simple with Lenormand. To explain tarot a little bit, I'm going to oversimplify things just for simplicity's sake here, but just know that tarot is very complex and there's so much more we could talk about here with it. But just to get a general sense of how the tarot is organized, it is divided into major and minor arcana. So major arcana tends to address larger life themes. We have the Fool's Journey kind of running through that as well. We start out with the Fool and end in the world and everything that's in between that. We also have the minor arcana, which addresses themes in our daily life. In addition, we also have the four suits: cups, wands, pentacles, and swords. And we also have the tarot court, the people of the tarot. And we do kind of have a little bit of hierarchy going on within the tarot. And there are also a total of 78 tarot cards. There's a lot of cards that we're looking at. And you also tend to read reversals with tarot, meaning that some cards are going to be read differently if they are upside down versus right side up. Not everyone reads that way, but that is kind of the typical way to read tarot. So there's a lot going on. There's this whole organizational structure within tarot. And on the flip side, we have Lenormand, which organizes cards in a way that is positive, negative, and neutral. It's organized by polarity. That's really it. We don't have major or minor arcana or anything like that. The closest thing we have to a court is we have typically a man and a woman card. New decks that are coming out tend to have people cards in them that can be non-binary, which is awesome. And we also can charge cards in Lenormand to represent specific areas of the querent's life or to represent specific people. So for instance, if we have the woman card, you can put extra intention while you're shuffling, asking your question for this card to represent a specific woman, such as the querent or an important woman in the querent's life. So that's kind of the closest we get to having court cards or something like that. But for the most part, with Lenormand, positive, negative, neutral. Of course, there are some nuances to that. Depending on your context, everything goes back to the question in Lenormand. Your question is really going to dictate how you read the spread that is in front of you. But for the most part, that's how the deck is divided. Also, we don't read reversals in Lenormand. I know there are a handful of people who do read that, but traditionally you don't read reversals in Lenormand. So if the card is upside down or right side up, you'd read it the same way. And the last main difference that we are talking about here today is the style. Lenormand is wonderful at giving you a lay of the land and showing you the who, what, when, and where. And tarot is wonderful at giving you the why and the how. So what I'm going to kind of break down for you is kind of my personal style of reading, but also the way I see many other Lenormand and tarot readers using these two systems, and when I see they employ Lenormand versus tarot. So let me give you an analogy to show you what I mean. If you picture your life as you in the driver's seat and you are driving at night, right? It's kind of hard to see at night, so you turn on your lights and maybe your high beams. I like to think of Lenormand as those high beams. You're able to really get a good sense of the lay of the land. You can see a little bit more in front of you than you could on your own, and you are getting a sense of what is coming up next. Now, I like to think of tarot as a friend in the car that you can kind of turn to and say, okay, now that I see what's coming up ahead of me, what do you want to do about that? So let's say you turn on your Lenormand high beams and you can see that maybe there's going to be a log in the road coming up or a traffic jam. And in the real world, that could look like something like, oh no, I might lose my job, or I can see that I might go through a breakup, or something like that when you pull the cards. Then once you kind of have your lay of the land, you can kind of turn to tarot. And I also see oracle cards typically working in this way as well. You can turn to your friend tarot or oracle and say, hi, what do you want to do about this breakup? What do you want to do about this job loss? Right. So you're getting this really well-rounded reading when you combine the two. I think they're really magical together. Now, that being said, I definitely see tarot readers who are using tarot as those high beams and they do predictive readings. And I also see Lenormand readers using Lenormand for advice. And so you can definitely use each tool as either role, but I find that they really work well together in that way. And what I hear from clients and students of mine is that they love how this works together and they feel like they get a really well-rounded reading with this approach. I have linked down below a post that breaks this down. So if you'd like to see it kind of written out and you'd like to read it a little bit more closely, you can check that out below. And if you would like to learn Lenormand, maybe you want to get started reading, I have a free 3-lesson mini course, which you can take anytime at the link below, or you can just head to emilyrosedivinationcom/mini course. I have everything you need to get started reading Lenormand. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. And if you would like to see a video from me in the future on a specific topic, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. Thank you so much.